Good afternoon. Welcome to today's webinar event. My name is Joshua and I'm going to be your presenter today. It's promptly noon Eastern Time. We're going to go ahead and get started shortly. We're here to talk about recording our electronic giving fees in church windows. If you're using the import donations function in the software, how to record those fees from your electronic giving company. Before we get started on that, though, really quickly here, we're going to be together for till 12:20 Eastern Time. I'm going to wrap things up wherever I am at that point. If you have questions, please type those into the questions portion of the webinar. I'll do my best to keep an eye on those and I'll repeat those for everyone's benefit, and we'll see what we can't do to get those answered. As always, a video of this particular event will be available on our website between now and the end of next week. This is sort of a conclusion to our series of Vanco events that we've had with our partner vendor Vanco Payment Solutions that we did last week. This is the kind of the conclusion of that, the final piece of that puzzle in terms of recording electronic giving. And so again, all of those videos will be out on our website here at some point soon. When we go to our Church Windows website, when we open up our Church Windows, www.churchwindows.com, and we go to Supporting and Support Center, hopefully everybody should be able to see my screen okay here. It's going to load our Support Center screen. If I type in the keyword here under Search for Creditor, and we click Search, how to handle creditor fees is essentially what we're dealing with today. Right here, view or print PDF file. This details, probably 50 or 60% of what I'm going to be covering today, so just want you to know I am using part of this as part of the guideline for our event. This material is not in our workbooks, okay? So this event and this document are really what we have in order to record and how to record these fees that we're discussing and that are becoming more and more popular for churches as more and more members and visitors are giving electronically to their churches. So just want you to know that that's what we're using as sort of the basis for our webinar event today. Let's go ahead and get started. So when we go into, I'm kind of held off on doing the entire posting because, again, this is important for how this works. So we're not going to be showing, the webinar I did last week, it actually goes through the import function in Church Windows. So we're already going to be having gone through the process of importing it. So we're going to pick it up at the point where we would post the batch. So here are my dates for my 420 and my 425 batches from April. I'm a little behind. So I've imported those. I'm now going to click Post Batch. It says this is not a Sunday date. Continue yes. And it says the transactions were posted totaling, do we want to print? No. So it takes out that 425 date. We're going to do our 420 date, same way, click Post, same warning, not a Sunday date, print no. Okay? So we've now posted the batch into our donations module. We're now going to go up to our transfer to accounting. This, folks, is probably the most important part of this process for us, okay, in terms of how to make it accurate, okay, to be as accurate as possible. Since Church Windows Donations doesn't import negative amounts, those fees basically are not recorded in the software, this amount that's trying to transfer over to accounting is the full amount that we've received from our contributor, which we're wanting to give them credit for. But say for example, 3% financer fee that's charged by your electronic giving company is also included in this, which isn't included in the amount that we're actually depositing to our checking account. So we've got to find a way of dealing with those fees, those percentages that that electronic giving company, whomever it may be, is charging before we then put the money into our checking account, okay, or into our cash account. Now, you can transfer this over. We could put this into our general checking, then go in and post a fee, but the problem with that is when we're on our bank reconciliation, we've got to know here's how much we received in donations, then you've got to offset that with the withdrawal transaction, and on those two have to net out to the correct amount. And if you've got like 12 or 15 days throughout the course of the month, where folks are giving electronically, that really could become a real pain. Okay? So that's not how we would recommend it. All right? So how we're going to recommend you dealing with these things is the way that we're going to show you right now. Okay? So we're going to bypass our batch waiting to transfer, because I want to go over to accounting now, and I want to show you a couple things here. So we're going into accounting, and so what's going to make this process, what is going to make it work the smoothest today is when you go back in, if we go into manage accounts and we go into our chart of accounts, and I'm using Vanco as my example here today, folks, but what I'm going to show you is going to be true no matter what company you use, whether it's your bank or PayPal or Vanco or e-giving or any one of the electronic companies out there. You'll want to set up here. Now notice when we type in Vanco under our search, we have an Asset 100 account set up called Vanco Clearing Account, and we've got an expense called Vanco Fees Expense. So you're going to want to make sure that you have both an asset and an expense set up, much like we do here. Certainly if you want to see on our reports in accounting, how much did we pay in, say, our electronic giving fees expense throughout the year, the expense account is going to be the only way to really do that. So you want to make sure you've got an expense, and you'll see the logic of our asset here in a minute. A clearing account, I think, sort of points to that already, what that does. Okay, it's an account to which we're posting our gross amount that we've received through donations. Then that account or that amount is where we're then going to charge those fees, and then we're going to shift it over to our checking account. So it's, again, this is the amount we're going to transfer into this clearing account, to which then we're going to post those fees. So I just want to show you, you need both an asset account and an expense account. Okay, we're not going to go back over to donations now. We can do this all from accounting now. So we would go up to transactions and go right up here to the top two, transfer donations. Let me get my highlighter right up here. Transfer donations. Let me draw my arrow poorly. So there's where we see that, and that's what we're gonna click on that. It's the same window we're seeing in donations. It's just we're accessing it from accounting. So here are my April 20th and April 25th dates for my giving batches. So here again is probably the most important step. So when I click on the plus sign next to that, notice here in the middle, right here next to my credit and debit accounts on the right side, it's automatically wanting to debit these to my main checking account, because that's what I have set up under my default account links tab here. Okay, I tell it when I go to my default account links that this debit account is where I want these monies whenever these giving accounts have money received and posted, where it's to transfer to. Okay, but in this particular case, we're not doing that. So what we're doing is, rather than going into our default account links and permanently changing these, we're just clicking in these account fields and doing a temporary change to these. So I'm going, okay, general fund, I'm taking out, it's going into the right credit account. The income side is all right, okay? So then here I'm just going to change this down to my Vanco. Well, I got to clear it out. Type in, and I'm just overriding it and choosing my Vanco clearing account. If I click the down arrow and I scroll down, it'll be down there. There it is. And Vanco clearing, right there it is. So again, I'm just temporarily changing the debit side of these transactions when I transfer them over to accounting. So from here, I'm going to click post. It then says, okay, I'm verifying that all $1798.70 is going into my Vanco clearing account, as well as into the respective income accounts. I'm going to click post. I could certainly enter comments here if I wish. So the transaction in accounting gets created. I'm going to do the same thing for my 425 date. Simply do a temporary change of the debit account to my Vanco clearing on all of my assets that are involved. These electronic giving dates and batches are unique all by themselves. There's no check giving or cash giving in this batch. It's all from Vanco. Okay. Once I've changed that, again, I click post. Confirm that's going to clearing. Click post. Okay. I've now transferred that over into my Vanco clearing account right here. We can see this clearly on the balance tab for the month of April. Here's my combined total of my, my two batches for the 2246.80. Okay. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply go up to Transactions, Other. I can choose a journal entry. I'm going to choose an Adjust Asset transaction. It's also a journal entry. Right here it says Deposit Correction, NSF, Stock Valuation. We could also add to that, electronic giving fees. It's a journal entry. So here I'm going to choose my asset to adjust is going to be my Vanco clearing account. I'm going to decrease it, and in this case I'm going to do a 3% adjustment on each one of these. I could do it as a lump sum, okay? But folks, how you decide to transfer these over, you could do them one date at a time if you wish, or you could do them as I'm doing them, where I could do each, I'll transfer them all over and then go over into accounting like I'm doing here and posting the adjustment for each date. So my batch for 420, a 3% decrease of that's going to calculate into a $53.96 reduction, and I'm going to backdate that to April 20th. I can put in here, Vanco fees. Come down here, type in my Vanco fees expense. Type in the same amount, 53.96. Post. No. Go back up to my other, Adjust Asset. I suppose that would be the advantage of going to the journal entry, folks, would be that I wouldn't have to keep going and closing in and out of this account, out of this screen each time. So I'm going to put in my 3% adjustment on my April 25th batch, which is 1344, backdating it to April 25th. Again, Vanco fees. Coming down here and choosing my Vanco fees expense and re-entering the 1344 again. Okay, and post. And I'm not going to print those. So the final step now, I've posted the fees to that, is to now go up to, again, I could do a journal entry, but I prefer transfer. I'm going to go up to transactions and transfer across the top. Here again, I can back. Now again, this is where it becomes important, because if these show up as two different deposits on my bank statement, which based on the date of the batches is strongly possible, I'm going to do both of these batches separately again, backdating these transactions separately. So I'm going to backdate my 1 to 420. I'm going to type in Vanco. There's my clearing account. To account is going to be Huntington Bank checking. Again, the amount, which is for April 20th, which is going to be the amount between my original batch total of $1798.70 less my fees, which is $1744.74. Payment method, I'm just going to do EFT. I can enter comments if I wish, and I click Done, Add to Batch. Okay, then I go back up and do the 725 or 425. Same thing, Vanco clearing to Huntington Bank checking. In the amount of the difference again between the fees and the original gross amount, which is now 434.66. Choosing electronic. Again, I can enter comments and Done, Add to Batch. Okay. So these two transactions should reconcile when I post them exactly. And again, the final portion of this, which I think is important that we need to understand, is again, I'm an awfully big fan, folks, of using the Show Running Balance window. So now that I've added these transfers to the batch and I click Show Running Balance, we now notice here, and I'm sorry I can't zoom in on this, folks, but right here next to our Huntington Bank checking is higher by $21.79.40 and our Vanco clearing account is lower. And as again a clearing account describes, is we need to make sure that that Vanco clearing asset account shows a zero balance when we're done. It doesn't matter whether you're doing it for a single date, folks, or whether you're doing it for the entire month. The end result is that Vanco clearing account or PayPal or whatever asset you set up needs to have a zero balance. Then we've accounted for all of the donations we've put into it correctly by transferring it out and putting it over into our main checking account correctly. So those two deposits of the $1744.74 and the $434.66 that we did on April 25th, assuming those are now going to show up on my bank reconciliation as separate deposits, can now be cleared and should reconcile perfectly. And I have also then accounted for my my fees properly on my treasurer's report to show how much the church has incurred in terms of expenses for that. Okay? Now once I'm done, I do have to click post. Now I might click yes on the print option on that in order to be able to make sure I've got a record of those particular transactions that I've posted. Okay? So two things that are very important that we have to, we're going to click no on the printing here though, is the two most challenging things about this are, again, once you've got the accounts set up, is when you go into the transfer donations, the amount of the electronic giving has to show up here as its own separate amount, and you've got to expand that and change that debit account to the clearing account or the asset account that you set up to receive those monies. Again, and why that's generally really there's no problems with that is because those electronic giving batches show up as complete, even if they might be a Sunday date, which they generally don't. They are separate batches, and you should be able to change that debit account to the asset account on virtually any of those you wish, so long as you do that before you transfer it over. It'll revert right back to whatever's set up under our default account links here next batch. So I'm not doing a permanent change here, I'm just doing a temporary change. Okay? And then, assuming that's done correctly, the second most important part of this process is when you go into the transfer window or journal entry, however you choose to do it. As I said, I'm fond of my transfers, is that you click the show running balance, and when you add those to the batch, that the adjusted balance on your asset account is in fact 0. If so, then you've recorded the debits and credits properly and you should be good. Okay? So that's it, folks. I mean, we are a little bit early here. Again, I think one of the things we do like to show about these processes frequently is it occurs as being a little tedious with regards to that, but provided you have the proper accounts, you know the amounts that you need to, that you need to post for your fees, things like that. This process, as we've shown here, can be done, and this is with me talking, we've done it in 17 minutes, So once you get it into a routine, it should be a very straightforward process, in terms of getting those fees assessed and having everything reporting in accounting and in donations exactly the way that you're wanting. Okay? If you have any further questions, please call support about it, 800-533-5227. And again, or revisit this video when it's released on our website next week. So let's see what questions we've got here. If you've seen what you came to see, folks, by all means, please choose the exit leave webinar function or option. I'd love to learn more about this, why this multi-step process is preferred to the end of the month reconciliation with the monthly giving Vanco report. Well, I'm sorry, Patty, I don't know how to answer that. If the reason why we're doing it this way is because again, we're in keeping with what our bank statement shows. So if the Vanco transfers it all to your checking account once a month at the end of the month, then great, do it on your monthly basis. But if, in this case, it's showing up as, 2 deposits in the month of April, it's going to make my bank reconciliation process much easier because it's going to show those 2 deposits on my bank statement separately, and church windows should match that. So, I guess if I'm understanding your question, that's my simple response to it. I don't know if it helps, but but again, I'm always in keeping with. I'm thinking about how's it going to appear on my bank reconciliation. Any of these transactions that affect my cash account. I'm trying to make the bank reconciliation process as quick and as easy and simple and problem-free as I possibly can. That's just how I do it. Other folks may not like it that simple, but frankly, I do. So, Okay, so again, folks, if there are any other questions, please type those into me now. I'll give folks a few seconds here, 10 or 15 seconds to type in something to me. But again, if not, please use the file and leave webinar option there. And again, please let us know through support if you do have any questions, or again, maybe revisit this video when it's available with those other Vanco presentations next week. Well, I'm not seeing anything coming in yet. It looks like folks are kind of leaving the webinar here pretty quickly. I hope it's been helpful. All right. Well, it looks like folks are kind of diving out of the webinar here pretty quickly. So doesn't look like we've got any questions coming in. I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar for everyone. And again, please visit our website for the current list of the new June webinar events here that we've got out there. Lots of fun, new, exciting stuff to talk about, especially our version 20 events. And we hope to see you there. All righty. Thanks so much. Have a good day. Thank you. Bye-bye.